This is Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Thursday microcast. I'm trying to keep it a little bit low because it's super early in the morning, but I've got a powerful one for you guys here today. Really in this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to stop putting off things so that you avoid wasting a lot of time spinning around for years and years and years so that you can actually create the freedom that you want and really make the kind of impact that you were meant to make. Now, here's the thing. I want to teach you today a decision-making process so that you can speed up this decision and then also get out of your own way and not beat yourself up after you've made that decision. So here's the thing. This decision-making process, this is going to be a little bit different than what I talked about before. Like when we talk about like you making a decision based off of whether somebody asks you to do something for them. All right. Now that was episode number 627. If you haven't listened to that one, if you're the kind of person who was like me, where you say yes to everyone and you overcrowd your plate so you have no ability of actually showing up on your A game, that is definitely the episode for you. But for today, I want to talk about decision making when it comes to your personal growth, when it comes to your next level. And it's like that internal personal question that you're asking yourself, should I do this or should I not? And that's really what today's episode is going to be about, all right? So this could look like starting a new program. It could look like whether you're trying to get a new promotion at work, you're trying to go up the leadership ladder. It's, thinking about a school that you want to attend, anything like that. Anytime you have some kind of decision, okay? Now, what most people do when they're presented with a decision is they literally think about it forever. They never make a decision. And what's crazy is like when you don't make a decision, you're basically saying no, but you're not giving your brain the ability of saying no and then releasing it. Can you see how that kind of feels? Like when you say no, I'm not going to do this, and you release it, how much better that feels because your brain doesn't like to have those open loops. And so what happens is people think that they need more information before they decide. They think they need to have more money first. They think they need to have more time. They think their kids have to be out of school. They think their kids have to be back in school. They think that X, Y, and Z needs to happen. And in reality, that's not the case at all right? Ultimately, what they do is they postpone the decision and they're wasting a lot of time up here. They're not making a decision one way or the other. And this literally takes them hours of precious time. But most importantly, and I'm just going to say like the things that we have going on in our head, this is a lot that we teach inside of our life coach schools. The things that we have going on in our head, those are the things that take the most amount of time and energy out of us. Not only because it helps fuel our mindset, but it literally takes all of this fighting that could be used for something that you can actually create and just an amazing, not only life, but actually hit your goals. Think about what you would be able to do if you repurpose the amount of time that you spend in here, making a decision, beating yourself up, self-sabotage, and you actually made it be like your superpower and instead flipped it around and actually allowed it to be useful for you. That is what you can do. Now, what a lot of people do is once they are in this indecision mode, then they start blaming the outside circumstances. They start pointing. They say, well, it's because of this, because of this, because of this. And I know I have a lot of police officers who follow me here just because I'm a police sergeant, but I also know that we don't like to be the victim. Most people don't like to be the victim. They want to be in control of their life. And when you kind of give away your control, it might feel okay in the moment. You're like, oh, it's not me, it's them. But really you give away your ability of changing, right? And in this opportunity, you give yourself, you don't give yourself the ability of actually changing your life, of making a decision and standing behind it, all right? So what I want to do today is I want to talk to you guys about one of the 13 chapters that I wrote about in my book. By the way, if you don't have my book yet, Mastering Your Life Through Self-Coaching, you can get it on Amazon, but I also have it for free on my site as long as you pay shipping and handling. You can go mindsetwithmark.com/book. But really this chapter is, it's the first chapter, because if you do not fully commit to this idea of taking ownership and deciding, the rest of what I teach, the rest of what I talk about is going to make you feel great and you're never going to do anything. There's a decision that needs to be made, all right? Now, here's what I mean. Some people, maybe you're not trapped in that, actually making a decision. Maybe you've made a decision. But here's what I see people who think that they made a decision actually make. And that is this thought of you know what? This is the decision I made right now. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to Monday morning quarterback myself and beat myself up later with new information that I'm presented. Whether it's something that you've learned through the process or something that you've discovered since going through that process, now you're going to use something that you don't even have right now. You don't even have any way of even identifying that it could have happened, and you're going to use that against you. However, what I would caution you, what I would try and get you to do is to think about, like, if you had never taken action, you would have never been able to actually experience that. You would have never been able to grow. I can't tell you how many things actually I jumped into, and I'm so glad I did, even though those things didn't work, even though those things didn't like get me to where I wanted to be. It was an important part of the process because it helped me determine what not to do. I know so many of the things that I've learned has been from people that I'm like, okay, that's not what I want to do. I remember as a FTO, as a police officer, I would see certain field training officers who were doing things that were amazing. I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. But then I would also see like people who are like, okay, that is exactly not what I want to do, right? And that's the power of really being able to make a decision and standing by it with the information that you have right now. And it's just a certain level of confidence when you do that. When you say, this is the best decision that I can make right now in this moment with the information that I have, and I refuse to beat myself up with it later. If I get given new information, that's awesome because that's a part of this process, right? Either I actually succeed at it, right? Or I learn and I grow. Those are the only two options that I choose to believe because I know that that's the truth if I believe it hard enough. And I really do believe it hard, and I believe it for you guys as well. So I want you to avoid like not only beating yourself up, but not making a decision because there's only two options that could happen. It works or you grow, you learn, you experience something else, and you can make a pivot. But you would have never been able to make that pivot if you didn't take action. There's this great quote is like, you can't improve inaction. You can't make it better. You can't see what works, and you definitely can't see what doesn't work because the way that your brain has it playing out is never the way that it's going to be. So guys, here's what I want you to do. When you're having this idea of like, I have to decide between this or this. Yeah, I want you to do a pros and cons. Like what's the pros and what's the cons? But I really want you to think about this, all right? I want you to think based on what I know right now, this is the best decision that I can make that's in alignment with what I want to create 5 years from now. All right? I want you to compare it to the person that you want to become in 5 years, the business that you want to grow in 5 years. Whatever you want to do in that 5-year period, if you decide that this is that thing, I want you to stand true to it and say, this is the best decision that I can make right now with the information that I have, and I will not beat myself up if new information is found out later. This was an important part of that process. Now, I also want you to say, like, I'm not telling you that you should do it. Absolutely not. But if you're going to say, like, hey, I'm not going to do it, I want it to come from a place of your heart voice. We teach head versus heart inside of our life coach certification. And really, it's two different places. One talks about, like, fear, scarcity, lack. And the other place talks about like abundance, a purpose, potential, love, those kind of things, right? It's when our kids ask us a question, our heart voice flows out, right? When they're like, I want to be this when I grow up. And we're like, yes. But then when we talk about ourselves and starting a new business ourselves, that's when we flow through our head voice. I don't want you to make decisions off of your head voice. You can make a decision off of your heart voice, and it could be, this is not the right decision for me. This is going to be a no. And you lead with that, not going back later and beating yourself up because things would have been different if you had made a better decision or a different decision. And that actually brings up one thing, guys. So many times when we're making a decision, we think there's a right or wrong one. There's not a right or wrong decision. The only decision that is the wrong decision is not making one. Not only does it make it for you by default and you're kind of pointing to the outside world and you're not taking responsibility for it, but it feels terrible because your brain doesn't even know you've made a decision. So make a decision one way or another. There is no right there is no right decision. Just jump in, make that decision, and go from there, okay? Because that's really what success looks like. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys so much for listening to this one. It's time for you to decide. I don't know what has been coming up for you in this podcast. I don't know like what has been going on in the background in terms of like, I really need to make a decision about this or this. I don't know what that means like to you, but decide. Grab the information, do the pros and cons list, and finally just sit down and make that decision. I can't tell you how freeing it is and how if you're leading with your heart, it's going to always turn out to be the best decision, even if you go back later and change it, all right? Even if you go back later and change it. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Once again, if you don't have a copy of my book, go to mindsetwithmark.com/book, grab a free copy, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next Monday episode. All right, bye, everybody.